The hall went silent the second Malik Cole snapped his fingers and the DJ cut the music. Colored lights washed over the crowd at the West End Cultural Center in Atlanta, where wax prints, gelly head wraps and Ankara suits shimmered like carnival fish. On the center stage, beside a three-tier coconut cake and a banner that read, Afropulse Fitness. Live light, Malik lifted a satin cloth and revealed a chrome scale wired to a giant LED screen. Tonight, he announced into the mic, we debut the scale of truth. We don't lie to ourselves anymore. Laughter rolled across the hall like a careless wave. He rode it, tall and camera-ready, the kind of handsome that made people forgive his cruelty until it was too late. He wore a slim-cut emerald suit, no shirt underneath, a gold chain catching the stage light as if it were born for it. Sponsors, clients, and cousins from Lagos to Decatur raised phones like lit candles, streaming live. And who better to inspire us, Malik continued, sweeping an arm toward the front row, than the woman I love, my wife, my day one, Nia. A spotlight stabbed into the crowd. Nia Adeyemi Cole half stood, then froze. She had deep brown skin that caught light like polished wood, a coral-beaded headpiece that sat like a small crown, and a peach Ankara gown with long sleeves. She'd sewn it herself to hide the ways her body had changed after midnights bent over catering pans and long days helping her mother with chemo. Her eyes flicked to her sister Aisha, to Auntie Kayamika, to the faces dissolving into murmurs. Babe, she said, barely audible, we didn't plan. It's spontaneity for the brand, Malik said brightly, cutting her off. We keep it real. No filters. The DJ played a drumroll. Someone yelled, Chai. This is content. Another voice, older, muttered, when a man mocks the river that fed him, Harmattan will dry his throat. Nia stepped onto the stage, palms damp, heartbeat crowing in her ears. Malik guided her toward the scale with the easy touch he once used to steady her through the chaos of their early days, back when they split one plate of jollof and believed struggle made people kinder. He put a hand at the small of her back, more stage direction than affection. What are you doing? She whispered. Relax, he said through a smile. They'll see we're transparent. We teach discipline. She looked out over the hall. Elders sat in the front rows, each a small country of memory. Teens in sneakers had tucked themselves around pillars, content-hungry eyes ready to splice this bold moment into 1,000 clips. Nia saw Uncle Tund, who had flown in from Lagos and brought cola nuts and stern blessings. She saw their neighbor, Ms. Gloria from Southwest Atlanta, who brought sweet tea and scriptures every other Sunday. She saw a world built of people, not just views. The scale blinked 0. Malik held the mic to his lips, showman to the bone. 3, 2, 1. Nia stepped on. The number climbed. The hall held its breath. The screen flashed a weight she had seen and avoided seeing for months, wrapped in fabric, disguised with jokes, drowned in work. Someone in the back whistled, sharp as a blade. Malik's laugh went brittle. Phew. That is some motivation, y'all. The DJ, thinking it was part of the spectacle, played a siren. People laughed, nervous, greedy, cruel. Nia's cheeks burned. She swallowed and found the microphone in her hand, not sure how it had gotten there. She caught the word like it was trying to escape. I've been dealing with excuses, Malik said loudly, and the hall cut its gasp into pieces that tumbled to the floor. He threw an arm around her shoulders as if he were saving her, not sinking her. We're going to fix this, sweetheart. New program drops Monday. Whole city's invited. We do hard things, right? Say it with me, baby, we do hard things. Phones tilted in like vultures leaning over a carcass. On the screen above, someone had superimposed sweat drops beside Nia's number as the live stream's comments fired. She let herself go. Malik is just helping. Wow, he's brave. Nah, this is humiliating. Nia didn't cry. She didn't yell. She put the microphone down on the speaker with a small, careful clap, like a mother leaving a room so the baby won't wake. She stepped off the scale, one heel wobbling, then catching, and handed the bouquet she had been holding to Auntie Kayamika. Don't go, Aisha whispered, fingers tightening on Nia's wrist. Nia looked up at the banner. Live light. Her jaw set as if a key had turned. Watch me, she said softly and slipped into the aisle. Malik reached for her, but the spotlight had already let her go. The crowd parted and swallowed her. Cameras tracked her like drones on a target, then lost her to the smell of coconut cake and suya smoke. Okay, Malik said, strained but still smiling. So, give it up for my wife. Give it up for honesty. He signaled the drummer who didn't start. On the left, one of the sponsors, Madame Ebola Konkwo, a Lagos shipping magnate wrapped in blue lace that could pay off 3 houses, stood with terrible calm. "Mr. Cole," she called, not bothering with a mic yet reaching every ear. "We withdraw our sponsorship from a man who uses his wife as a prop." A hush fell the size of a continent. Malik tapped his smile back into place. "Madam Ebel, I'm teaching. This is impact. Impact is when a seed falls and feeds the ground," she said. "Not when a stone falls and bruises the fruit." Murmurs rose, hesitant at first, then a slow storm. Malik's hand drifted to his chest, where his smartwatch buzzed. High heart rate detected. He ignored it. He'd been ignoring a lot. The last few weeks his belt notches had crept the wrong way. His jawline looked softer in the bathroom mirror. He told himself it was water, stress, the bridal expo he was training influencers for, not the late fries he ate in the car, not the nights caught between screens and sleep. Another notification, EKG irregular, see a doctor. His thumb stabbed the crown and cleared it. He raised his mic, voice steady as a blade on gel. "Family," he said, conjuring the coach tone, "we will not let negativity win. We will build discipline together." This movement started in a one-bedroom with nothing but an idea and prayer. "We are." The lights hiccuped, blinking the room into a slow strobe. People murmured, looked up. The DJ tapped the mixer. "Power glitch," he muttered. Malik's phone lit in his hand. A text from a number saved as Dr. Sanders. "Urgent, your results are in. You need to come in tonight. Severe fluid retention risk. Do not exert." His mouth went dry. He looked toward the aisle where Nia had vanished. For a single second, the line of his life bent and he could see it all at once. The one bedroom with the cheap kettle and the way she laughed with her whole body, the first shipment of resistance bands they sold from their trunk, the nights she cooked egusi soup at 2 a.m. He reached for those images like a drowning man reaches for the surface. Someone tapped his elbow. It was Ms. Gloria, fierce in silver flats and a velvet shawl. "You will apologize now," she said low. "You will go and bring her back." Malik bristled. "Ma'am, with respect." "With respect," she said, "pride is a poor pillow. It will not hold your head when the night comes." A shout stabbed through the room from the back doors. "Fire alarm," a security guard called. "Kitchen smoke, stay calm." The smell of char hit, not danger yet, but a warning. Aisha, who had followed Nia, reappeared at the threshold, eyes wide, scanning. "Malik," she yelled over the growing noise. "Where is Nia's inhaler? Is it in your car?" The hall turned to him as one organism. Malik's mind snapped to the day he cleaned the car and tossed a small bag into a trunk bin he never reorganized. He felt the shape of guilt slide between his ribs. "Keys?" Aisha demanded, hand outstretched. Malik fumbled them free, tossed them. His heart drummed against his throat. Madame Ebel was already shepherding elders to the side exits with the composure of someone who had moved ships through storms. On stage the cake leaned as if listening. The DJ killed the sound entirely. The throb of many feet rose, a living engine. 2 teen boys, faces open and scared, moved to help a woman on crutches. Auntie Kayamika gathered small children like loose beads. Over it all, the LED screen behind Malik still held the echo of a number no one wanted to remember. He stepped down from the stage, producer finally eclipsed by husband. As he pushed through bodies warming with fear, he felt the world tilt. Not the building, him. A vertigo seized him, a quick eclipse. The smartwatch buzzed again. Seek a seat. He refused it, teeth clamped. By the kitchen corridor, heat pushed at the air, stubborn and smoky. He saw Nia then, through the half-open door of the women's lounge, leaning over the sink, shoulders shaking, one hand on her chest. A younger cousin held a bottle of water, helpless. "Nia," Malik called, and the name quivered out of him like a prayer that hadn't been practiced in a long time. She looked up, face streaked with sweat, eyes steady in a way that made him feel small. "I told you," she said, voice rough. "I've been dealing with something. But you were busy making a show." "What something?" he asked, already terrified of the answer. Before she could speak, a sharp metallic snap cracked the hall's underbelly. The chandelier points rattled. Someone screamed by the dance floor. A waiter stumbled, tray clanging, and a stream of candle wax hissed onto the patterned rug. In a lightning flicker of silence, a second text popped onto Malik's screen, words big enough to swallow a man whole. "You need to be admitted immediately. The tests suggest cardiomyopathy. Fluid retention will worsen with stress. Call me now." Malik stared, the letters drifting for a moment like fish in a dark tank. He lifted his eyes back to Nia. In her face he saw all the things he had overlooked, the secret storm she had walked through while he branded discipline and sold it in 30-day bundles. She took one careful breath and placed a hand over her abdomen. Aisha burst in behind him, pale and breathless. "The inhaler is gone," she said. "It's not in the car." And, she swallowed. "And the social pages. Malik, the live stream, it's gone viral. Sponsors are tagging you." A small wheeze crawled up Nia's throat. She reached into her purse, fingers scraping the bottom. Empty. Her cousin pulled out a paper fan and began to wave frantically. Malik's knees liquefied. He stepped forward, arms out, but the smoke alarm shrieked and a cluster of people surged through the corridor, cutting him off like a wave that didn't care who you were. In that instant, the cake toppled in the hall with a sugary thud and the crowd gasped as one body. Nia swayed, hands still on her abdomen, eyes never leaving his. "I was trying to tell you," she murmured. "What?" Malik pleaded, voice cracking as the siren lights flushed the corridor red. "Tell me what?" Her lips parted. The building shuddered. From the ceiling above the lounge, a hairline crack snaked across the plaster with a sound like splitting bone, and something heavy shifted directly over where Nia stood. The crack in the ceiling quivered like a vein about to burst. Powdery dust rained down in a slow ghostly ribbon. People shouted in the hall, but Nia held Malik's eyes as if a thread ran between them and any sudden move would snap it. "I was trying to tell you," she said again, softer now, hand anchored to her abdomen. "I needed a better way. A private way." Before the ceiling made its final decision, before the lounge door banged again and the alarm sharpened into a knife, the story pulled back, like the ocean dragging its breath before a wave. They had met 5 years earlier in a place much louder and much poorer than this glittering hall, on a basketball court behind a YMCA on Atlanta's west side, where the chain-link fence rattled with every fast break and the air smelled like hot rubber and lemon ice. Malik was leading a free Saturday boot camp. Nia had come to hand out small foil packs of roasted plantain she'd made the night before. She wore a denim jacket over a Tiger of Lagos t-shirt, hair in 2 thick puffs, and sneakers that had seen faithful days. He was shirtless, showing the kind of muscle that made teenagers believe in shortcuts and believers talk about discipline. "You the snack lady?" he said, dropping his grin like a coin in a jar and waiting for the echo. "I'm the one who paid for the water cooler and the first aid kit," she shot back. It made him laugh, not because it was a joke but because it was true, and truth had always tasted like spice to him. They walked the cracked sidewalk after the session, sharing one bottle of Fanta like kids in a Nollywood flashback. He told her he wanted to build a brand that made people believe in sweat and prayer. She told him she wanted a kitchen so big she could cook for a whole street without running out of salt. He loved her laugh. She loved the way he paid attention, like the whole world could be organized with a whiteboard and effort. They grew together. Sundays were church and pepper soup. Mondays were meetings at their one bedroom with peeling paint and a neat list on the fridge. Rent. Rice. Rahab's tuition, that was her cousin. They sold bands from their trunk and filmed videos under a single ring light that hummed like a mosquito. When the algorithm finally noticed them, it was like rain after a long season. Sudden, wide, dangerous if you didn't know how to step. Malik knew how to step. He trimmed his speech to 12 seconds of punch. He learned which thumbnails got clicks. He stopped saying we, and started saying I without meaning to. Nia learned how to stitch African prints into leggings, how to cook healthy jollof without tasting like punishment, how to smile through cramps and get through one more take. They moved from the one bedroom to a small townhouse with a yard big enough for a grill and a lemon tree that refused to die. Then life sent its private bills. Nia's mother's diagnosis arrived folded into a Friday like a bad letter. The chemo began. The nights got long. Nia ate standing up, ate late, sometimes didn't eat at all, then ate everything. The weight crept on the way dust does, quiet, daily, loyal. She went to a doctor who told her about hormones and stress, about insulin resistance, about how women's bodies hold stories men think are only numbers. She took notes in a small book and tried to explain. Malik nodded in those early days. "Whatever you need," he said and meant it. But success is a voice that whispers into a man's ear that he can be the weather. And after the sponsorships came and the billboards showed his smile 10 feet tall, the whisper got louder. He started saying things like, "We are the product," and "no off days," and "people are watching." He began to correct Nia in public, not loudly, just often. He started to give advice where comfort should live. "Put the fork down, babe," he'd joke at a staff lunch. "We got goals." "You still love me if I never change?" she'd ask in the kitchen at midnight, her voice a small open door. "Don't talk like that," he'd say, kissing her forehead like a closing act. "We change. That's what winners do." Nia discovered she could hide in clothes. She sewed long sleeves into summer, layered soft wrappers over soft places. She deleted comments before they could ripen. She saved screenshots of strangers who said kind things and read them when the house slept. She kept walking. She kept cooking. She kept the books. She kept the brand alive in 1,000 ways no camera could catch. The first time she fainted, she was alone, a pot of okra soup cooling on the stove. She woke on the kitchen tile with the lemon tree shadow on the ceiling and a taste of iron in her mouth. The clinic ran tests and said 2 things that wouldn't share a room: "We're watching your blood sugar, and you might be pregnant." They asked her to return in a week. She planned a quiet dinner to tell Malik with a simple card: "You and me plus one small miracle." But a last-minute brand shoot collided with the dinner, and when she told him she wanted to talk, he said, "Put it in my calendar, baby. This week is fire." She tried again the next week and the next, and then tonight she was going to ask him to step backstage between the speeches and let her speak to him with the door closed. Instead, he called her to the stage. The hallway snapped back into being with a cough and a cough's echo. The crack in the ceiling stretched in a slow, greedy yawn. The smoke alarm cried. In the hall, Madame Ebel's voice was steady as a metronome: "Elders first. Children next. Hold hands. Move like water." "Nia," Malik said, throat raw, Are you saying what I think?" She licked dry lips. "Yes. And the doctor said I need less stress. I tried to tell you, Malik. You kept turning our life into content." He flinched, the way a man does when a good arrow finds the soft place under the armor. His chest tightened again, not just with shame this time. The smartwatch buzzed with that cold machine kindness that doesn't care who you are. Blood oxygen LOW. Seek rest. Aisha elbowed past 2 guests and planted herself in the doorway. "We need to get out," she said. "Right now." Nia took a step. Something above them creaked with the slow horror of a tree splitting in a storm. A chunk of plaster fell and smashed on the floor where her foot had been. They all jumped. Dust billowed. "Move," the cousin cried, pulling Nia's elbow. Malik reached for Nia's other arm and she let him. They stepped as one. The lounge door pushed open on a crowd in motion. Beautiful clothes, scared eyes, people who hours ago were there to celebrate now working together like a body saving itself. A teenage boy in a Falcons hoodie pointed. "Sir, ma'am, this way is clear." They followed the line, but the hallway narrowed where a cart had tipped and spilled bottled drinks. Malik's head swam. The letters on his phone doubled. He felt a cold wetness at his socks and looked down to see water licking the floor. The sprinkler system had kicked on somewhere, turning smoke to mist. The red exit sign ahead pulsed like a heartbeat. He told himself, 10 more steps. Then 9. A memory hit him sideways, Nia asleep on her side, hand tucked under cheek, the smallest snore, a smudge of flour near her hairline. He had taken a picture then, not for the internet, just to remember softness. He tasted fear like a metal coin on his tongue. Not for the brand. For her. For this. The ceiling groaned, warning without words. Ms. Gloria appeared again, small but unmovable, planting herself under the worst of the crack and ushering people around it like a traffic officer. "Don't stop," she ordered. "Don't look up. Just move. One at a time. The Lord gave you legs for a reason." Nia's breath came faster. She rubbed her belly without meaning to, a habit forming itself. Malik noticed. He felt the floor tilt again and hated his own body for its betrayal. The man who body-shamed his wife now dizzy from his own failing heart, the irony so sharp he could taste blood. "Hold on to me," he said. "I am," she answered, and it was not forgiveness yet, only fact. They reached the end of the corridor where the hall opened to the side exit near the loading dock. Cool night air seeped through the edges like patience waiting. People ahead spilled out into the dark, coughing, blinking, grateful and angry and alive. Aisha squeezed through and turned to pull Nia with her. Malik braced a hand on the wall to steady himself for one more step. From somewhere deep in the building, a pop, then a low rumble. The crack above them widened with a sound like paper tearing the sky. The sprinkler in the lounge finally burst, spraying cold water that flattened hair and hope all at once. The old chandelier chain moaned as if it had something to confess. "Go," Aisha yelled. "Now." Nia looked back once at Malik. Even through wet hair and dust, even through shame and the weight of a night gone wrong, he saw the old thing in her eyes. The reflex to help, the refusal to be hard where tenderness could still be hazard and gift. "I have to say this before anything falls," she said, voice trembling but loud enough to cut through alarm and water. "I'm pregnant, Malik." For a heartbeat all sound went thin. The word hung between them like a small, blazing lantern. He blinked as if he could seal the word inside his chest and keep it safe. "A baby," he said, wonder breaking through the arrogance like grass through a crack. We're having." The chandelier chain snapped. The world roared. Something vast and bright fell from the ceiling in a blur of rain and glass and gold. A wave of people shoved forward and backward at once, a human tide colliding with fear. Malik instinctively threw his weight toward Nia, arms out to drag her through the door. Nia shoved back the same way, pushing him out into the night with a strength he had forgotten she possessed. The falling light found its path. Darkness surged, and the chapter ended in the instant before impact. The sound was like thunder breaking inside a metal drum. Glass shattered, sparks screamed from the ceiling, and then everything went black. When Malik's eyes fluttered open, he was lying on cold concrete, half inside and half outside the side exit. Rain mixed with sprinkler water soaked his emerald suit, now gray with ash and plaster. His chest throbbed. His ears rang. People were shouting all around him, their voices muffled as though underwater. "Nia," he rasped, his throat raw from smoke. He tried to rise, but his legs wobbled. Pain shot through his left arm. Aisha's face appeared over him, streaked with dust and tears. "Stay still," she shouted over the chaos. "The firefighters are coming." Malik ignored her. "Where is she?" he demanded, grabbing her sleeve. "Where is my wife?" Aisha pointed back toward the doorway. "She's inside, they're trying to reach her." His world froze. For a moment all the noise and flashing lights disappeared. The air hung thick with fear and burnt sugar. Then Malik was on his feet, stumbling toward the doorway like a man already halfway through a nightmare. "Malik, stop!" Aisha screamed, but he tore free and pushed past two security guards. Inside, smoke curled in angry ribbons. The chandelier had crashed halfway through the lounge ceiling, its metal frame tangled with wires and flaming drapes. Water poured from the sprinklers like a desperate prayer. Malik covered his mouth with his sleeve, eyes scanning through the haze. Then he saw her, Nia, half crouched behind a fallen table, coughing, clutching her stomach. A firefighter in yellow gear was reaching for her but struggling to pull her through a narrow gap blocked by debris. "Nia," Malik called, stumbling toward her. Her head lifted weakly. "Go back," she wheezed. "The ceiling's unstable. I'm not leaving you." He stepped over the smoking beam, nearly losing balance. His heart hammered hard enough to blur his vision. Each breath felt like glass in his lungs. He reached the firefighter. "Let me help." "Stay back, sir," the man barked. "We've got it." But Malik ignored him. He grabbed a loose metal rod and jammed it under the beam, pushing with all the strength his shaking body could muster. The firefighter joined in, and with one last grunt, they lifted it just high enough for Nia to crawl free. The instant she cleared the spot, the beam slammed back down with a deafening clang. The floor shook. Nia collapsed into Malik's arms, trembling. He pulled her close, pressing his forehead against hers. "I've got you," he whispered hoarsely. "I've got you." Her tears mixed with the rain and dust. "Why, Malik?" she whispered. "Why did you do it? Why humiliate me like that?" His mouth opened, but words stumbled and died. "I thought I was motivating you. I thought it was love in disguise." She looked at him, hurt and disbelief warring in her eyes. "Love doesn't embarrass. It protects." Firefighters grabbed them then, ushering them toward the exit. They stumbled into the night air together, coughing and blinking against flashing red lights. The paramedics rushed forward, wrapping blankets around them. Nia clung to Malik's hand, exhausted. The building behind them hissed like a wounded animal. An officer approached. "Everyone clear?" "Still checking the kitchen wing," a firefighter shouted back. "Gas lines intact. No fatalities reported." Nia closed her eyes in relief, one hand still over her abdomen. The paramedic checking her pulse frowned. "Ma'am, are you expecting?" She nodded faintly. "Just found out, a few days ago." The paramedic nodded. "We'll take you both to Grady Hospital. Just to be safe." Malik tried to protest, but his breath caught. Pain clawed through his chest again. His vision narrowed until the paramedic's voice sounded like an echo inside a tunnel. Then everything went black again. When he woke, the beeping of machines replaced the sirens. White ceiling. White sheets. A faint smell of disinfectant. He blinked. A monitor glowed beside him. Heart rate, oxygen, a line of numbers telling him how close he had come to dying. A nurse in blue scrubs stepped in, a Ghanaian woman with kind eyes and quick hands. "Ah, you're awake," she said. "You're a lucky man, Mr. Cole." Malik's throat felt like sandpaper. "My wife, where's Nia?" "She's fine," the nurse said, smiling. "A few bruises, mild smoke inhalation. She's in the maternity ward for monitoring." You'll see her soon. Maternity? Malik repeated, blinking in confusion. Then he remembered her words, the lantern between them. She's pregnant. He exhaled, the truth sinking like a heavy stone. She's really pregnant. Yes, the nurse said softly. Now you rest. Doctor will be in soon. But rest wouldn't come. Images flooded him. The laughter, the lights, the number on the scale, the sting in her eyes. He turned his face toward the window where rain streaked the glass like slow tears. He remembered her telling him once, "Not all pain shows on the outside, Malik. Some pain hides and eats quietly." Back then he'd laughed it off. Now he understood. Hours later, when the doctor came in, his tone was calm but serious. "Mr. Cole, we've reviewed your tests. You have an early form of cardiomyopathy, heart muscle weakness. It's manageable but only if you slow down." Malik stared. "Heart failure?" "Not yet," the doctor said gently. "But if you keep living the way you have, stress, no rest, constant performance, it will get worse." The irony twisted like a knife. The man who mocked his wife for her weight now sat weak, monitored, told to change or die. Karma had a way of dressing like a mirror. The doctor placed a hand on his shoulder. "She's been through enough, your wife. Take this as a warning and a gift." The next day Malik was discharged with strict instructions. Rest, diet change, and therapy. But his true medicine waited at the maternity ward. When he entered, Nia was sitting by the window wearing a loose hospital gown and headscarf, sipping tea from a paper cup. Her face was pale but peaceful. She looked up when she heard him. For a long moment neither spoke. Then Malik dropped to his knees beside her bed. "Nia," he said, voice trembling. "I was cruel. I forgot that love isn't a brand. I forgot you're human before you're a wife, before you're my partner in business. You gave me everything, your strength, your patience, your laughter, and I gave you shame." She looked at him, eyes glistening. "Malik. I was wrong," he continued, tears spilling freely now. "I let pride make me blind. And now my heart," he laughed bitterly, "my actual heart is paying the price. The doctor said I have a condition. Maybe it's God's way of teaching me to feel again." She set her cup down and reached out, placing her hand gently on his. "You've always had a good heart, Malik. You just forgot how to use it." He bowed his head against her hand. "If you'll let me, I'll spend the rest of my life making this right." Silence filled the room like a soft rain. Then slowly Nia squeezed his hand. "One step at a time," she said quietly. "But Malik, this time we heal in private. No cameras. No audience." He nodded, emotion choking him. "No audience," he whispered. "Just us." Outside the window, dawn began to break, spilling gold over the Atlanta skyline. The world felt quiet again, fragile but clean. As weeks passed, Malik withdrew from the spotlight. The Afropulse fitness brand paused its flashy ads. Instead, he started a smaller community group, private, quiet, focused on real people, not numbers. He spoke gently about health and grace, about kindness to self and others. Sometimes he would pause mid-session, glance at his wedding ring and smile faintly. He had learned that bodies heal slower than pride, but both can mend. And at home he cooked for Nia, counting not calories but blessings. By the time their baby was born, a girl they named Amara, meaning grace, the lesson had settled deep. Malik stood in the hospital nursery watching his tiny daughter breathe, feeling his chest ache, not from illness but from something cleaner, stronger. He whispered, "You saved your father, little one." Behind him, Nia's voice floated softly, "No, Malik. Karma did. But she only came because she wanted to give you a second chance." Drop your answer in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves powerful life lessons. 2 months later, the sky over Atlanta was the color of ash before rain, and Malik stood on the porch of their townhouse, staring at the lemon tree that refused to die. Its leaves were bright again, heavy with fruit, a small miracle he didn't deserve but was grateful for. Inside, Nia's laughter drifted out, mingling with baby Amara's soft cries. Malik felt his heart stutter. Every sound, every breath in that house reminded him how close he'd come to losing everything. He adjusted the cuff of his loose kaftan, inhaling the smell of fried plantain and ginger tea. He was healing but slowly. The doctor had warned him that cardiomyopathy wasn't cured overnight. "It's not just your heart muscle that needs rest, Mr. Cole," the man had said. "It's your spirit." And he was right. Malik's empire, once loud, viral, and unstoppable, had shrunk. Sponsors had pulled out, followers had unfollowed, headlines had mocked. Fitness guru suffers heart scare after body shaming wife. He'd gone from trending hashtags to quiet stares in grocery stores. Once, a woman in the produce aisle whispered to her friend, "That's the man who humiliated his wife." He had smiled weakly and moved on. There was nothing to say that wouldn't sound like an excuse. But in the quiet, Malik discovered something he'd never known: peace. Real peace. He joined Nia in the kitchen where she stood barefoot, stirring a pot of egusi soup. Her hair was wrapped in a deep green scarf, her brown skin glowing against the warm kitchen light. Amara slept in a small basket near the counter, wrapped in soft Ankara fabric. "You're up early," she said without looking up. "Didn't the doctor say you should rest more?" He smiled faintly. "Couldn't sleep. Thought I'd help." Nia turned, one eyebrow raised. "Help or supervise like before?" He laughed, hands raised. "Help. I promise." She handed him a chopping board. "Then slice the onions. And don't talk about macros or calories. Just cut." He obeyed, chopping slowly. It was quiet except for the soft rhythm of the knife. After a moment, Nia spoke. "Madame Ebel called me yesterday." Malik froze mid-chop. "Madame Ebel? After everything?" "She said she's opening a new wellness center in Lagos," Nia said. "She wants me to head the nutrition branch." Malik blinked. "You?" "Me," she said simply. "She said she's watched me quietly for years. She saw how I handled everything, even that night. She said people need more women who teach love instead of shame." He exhaled slowly. "That's incredible, Nia. You deserve it." She also said she'd understand if I didn't want to work with anyone connected to the Afropulse brand again. The word stung, but he didn't flinch. "She's right." Nia placed the spoon down, turning to him fully. "I told her I'd think about it. But if I go to Lagos, it'll be for me, and for Amara. Not for running away from what you did. For walking toward something new." Malik nodded, his heart squeezing painfully but gently. "Then go. If that's where your peace is, you should go." She studied him. "And you? What will you do here without me?" "Fix what I broke," he said softly. "Not for followers. Not for image. For real." That evening, Malik sat in front of a small camera, not in a gym, not in a suit. Just in his living room, wearing a plain white shirt. The video would be called, "To Every Woman I Hurt Without Knowing." He hit record. "Hi, my name is Malik Cole," he began, voice steady but thick with emotion. "And I used to think discipline meant control. I thought success meant power. But I was wrong." He paused, glancing toward the photo of Nia and Amara on the table. "I hurt someone who loved me more than my career ever could. I laughed when I should have listened. I mocked when I should have prayed. And life, God, karma, the universe, whatever you call it, found a way to teach me humility. The hard way." He took a deep breath. "To every woman who has ever been told she isn't enough because of her size, her skin, her voice, this is my apology. From a man who learned that true strength isn't in how much you lift, but in how gently you hold the people who trust you." When he finished, he didn't expect the video to go anywhere. But within 24 hours, it did. It spread, not as a scandal but as a story of repentance. Women who had once cursed his name now commented, "Maybe he's finally learning." Men confessed, "I've done worse. I need to do better." For the first time, Malik's inbox was full, not with brand offers but with stories. Stories of forgiveness, pain, and redemption. He replied to every one. A month later, Nia stood in the airport terminal with Amara in her arms, eyes glistening as Malik hugged them both. "I'll join you soon," he said, pressing his forehead to Amara's. "Just finish the first phase. I'll follow once my checkups are clear." "You better," Nia teased softly. "Because if you don't, Amara will grow up thinking her dad is just a man on video calls." He chuckled, voice breaking. "I won't let that happen." They held each other a long time, the world around them fading. The boarding calls, the announcements, the rushing footsteps, all background to the quiet heartbeat of a love that refused to die. Back home, Malik returned to volunteering at community centers, teaching teenagers about self-worth, body confidence, and discipline balanced with empathy. He invited women trainers, nutritionists, and mothers to speak. One Saturday afternoon after class, a young boy lingered behind. "Mr. Malik," he said shyly, "is it true you used to be mean to your wife?" Malik knelt to meet his gaze. "Yes," he said simply. "And I thank God every day that she forgave me. But don't wait for life to teach you through pain. Learn from my mistake." The boy nodded, eyes wide. "I will." Malik smiled, watching him leave. For once, the gym felt peaceful, like redemption had found a way to live in muscle and sweat. He placed a hand over his heart, the monitor under his shirt quietly steady. He whispered to himself, "I'm still learning, Nia." That night he stood under the lemon tree again. The moon hung above, fat and golden. A single fruit dropped and rolled toward his feet. He bent, picked it up and smiled. "Maybe it's time to make lemonade," he said softly to the empty yard. And from somewhere deep inside it felt like the universe smiled back. The Lagos air was thick with the smell of roasted corn, diesel and ocean salt, a living contradiction of chaos and beauty. Nia stood at the balcony of her small apartment in Lekki, Amara sleeping peacefully in her arms. It had been 6 months since she'd left Atlanta, 6 months since she'd stepped away from the world that had both made and broken her. Below, the city moved like a restless drumbeat. Danfo buses honking, street vendors shouting, children chasing each other barefoot. In the distance, the half-built glass structure of Ebel Wellness Center gleamed in the morning sun. That was her new beginning. "Mommy, Amara's awake again," her younger cousin Kemi called from inside, setting down a bowl of pap. "She doesn't like Lagos naps." Nia smiled. "Neither did I at first." She gently rocked her daughter. "But she'll get used to it. We both will." Kemi joined her at the balcony. "Madam Ebel said your presentation for the health summit was perfect. She called you Dr. Nia even though you're not a doctor yet." Nia laughed softly. "That woman loves exaggeration." "No, she loves you. Everyone does. The way you talk about healing, about forgiveness, about food and emotion, it's different. You're helping people." Nia looked down at the streets again. The city was alive, unfiltered, forgiving. "Maybe," she said quietly, "but I'm still learning too." Back in Atlanta, Malik was on his knees again, not from weakness but in prayer. The doctor's latest report had been mixed. His heart function was stable, but any relapse could be fatal if he ignored his limits. He prayed not for fame or fortune this time but for strength. The strength to remain humble, to keep walking the slower path. His living room wall was covered with sticky notes and quotes now. "Listen before you lead. Love without audience. Discipline with grace." He was writing a book titled Broken But Breathing, Lessons from a Failed Fitness Guru. Not a fitness guide but a confession wrapped in wisdom. Each chapter started with something he'd once preached wrongly, and ended with what he'd learned from the fallout. When he reached the chapter titled The Scale of Truth, his hands trembled. He typed slowly. "That night I lifted a microphone not to inspire but to wound. I thought I was teaching accountability but I was teaching cruelty. My wife's silence that day weighed more than any number on the scale. It took nearly dying to understand that her strength had been the foundation beneath my arrogance." He leaned back, eyes glassy. "Karma doesn't punish," he whispered to himself. "It educates." One Sunday morning, Malik's phone buzzed. It was a video call from Nia. His heart fluttered. When her face appeared on screen, the golden Lagos sunlight poured through behind her. Amara was in her lap, babbling, drooling, pulling on her mother's hair. "Look who's talking now," Nia teased, smiling. "Hey, my sunshine," Malik said softly. "How's Lagos treating you?" Nia looked radiant, her skin glowing with peace and purpose. "Busy but beautiful. Madam Ebel's Center opens next week. We've trained 60 women in nutrition counseling already." Malik's smile deepened. "You always had the power, Nia. You just needed the world to see it without me standing in your way." Nia looked at him for a long moment. "You sound different." "I am different," he said simply. "You taught me how to be." They talked for an hour, about work, about Amara's new tooth, about faith and fear and how sometimes love isn't a straight road but a broken one that still leads home. Before hanging up, Malik said softly, "Nia, oh, would you ever come back?" "To Atlanta." She hesitated, eyes soft but guarded. "One day maybe. But not to go backward. Only if we're walking forward, as two healed people, not one broken and one savior." He nodded slowly. "I'll wait for that day." A week later, Nia's name trended online. A video clip of her speech at the Lagos Health Summit went viral. She stood at the podium, dressed in an elegant mustard kaftan with bold African patterns, her voice calm yet fierce. "People ask me how I forgave the man who humiliated me," she said. "The truth is, forgiveness wasn't for him. It was for me. I couldn't carry anger and healing in the same body. One had to go." The audience clapped. She continued, "We teach discipline like it's punishment. But true discipline is kindness. It's knowing that strength looks different on everyone, and sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is love the parts of yourself the world tells you to hide." Her words rippled across continents. Hashtags exploded, Hashtag heal with Nia. Hashtag kindness is discipline. Hashtag forgive to grow. In Atlanta, Malik watched the video on his laptop. Tears welled in his eyes. He whispered to the screen, "You did it, Nia. You really did." That night he opened his journal and wrote a letter. Not to post, not to send, but to remember. "Dear Karma, thank you for breaking me. Because in breaking, I met the truth about love." 2 months later, Malik finally boarded a flight to Lagos. His doctor had cleared him for travel under supervision. His heart was stronger though not invincible, just like him. When he arrived, the air hit him with warmth and memory. He took a taxi straight to the Ebel Wellness Center. It stood tall and glassy, overlooking the lagoon, painted with murals of women and men of all sizes, smiling, holding hands. At the entrance, a large banner read, "Ebel Wellness Center, Home of Healing, headed by Malik Cole." He smiled. Malik Cole. She still used his name. As he stepped inside, people recognized him. Some whispered, some stared, but there was no hate this time, only curiosity. Malik walked through the hall until he reached the auditorium. And there she was, standing on stage, microphone in hand, talking to a group of young trainers about emotional health and fitness. Her tone was calm, her presence magnetic. When she saw him, her words faltered for just a heartbeat, then she smiled. A small, cautious, beautiful smile. Malik took a slow breath, his chest steady for once. Maybe, just maybe, the hardest lesson wasn't punishment after all. Maybe it was preparation. And this, seeing her whole, seeing her happy, was his final exam. He didn't interrupt. He didn't rush to the stage. He just stood in the back, listening to her voice echo through the hall. The same voice he'd once tried to silence, now powerful enough to heal a generation. And for the first time in years, Malik's heart didn't hurt. It was finally at peace. The applause filled the hall like a living wave. Nia finished her speech with grace, set the microphone down, and stepped aside as the audience rose to their feet. Cameras flashed, people clapped, and a few even wiped tears. Madame Ebel, elegant in her royal blue lace gown and coral beads, walked onto the stage and embraced Nia tightly. "You've made me proud, my daughter," she said. "This," she gestured to the entire building, "is no longer my dream. It's yours now." Nia smiled humbly. "It's ours, Ma. You planted the seed. I just watered it." They turned to the crowd as the applause continued, and that was when Nia's eyes found Malik again, standing quietly at the back, his hands clasped, not seeking attention, just watching. For a moment she froze. He looked different, thinner, calmer. The fire of arrogance that once burned behind his eyes had softened into something gentler, deeper. Madame Ebel followed her gaze and nodded knowingly. "He's come far to stand there, hasn't he?" Nia nodded, her throat tightening. "Yes, Ma. Very far." "Then don't let pride stop forgiveness," Ebel said softly. "Sometimes God sends storms to wash away the dirt, not to drown us." After the event, Nia stepped outside into the Lagos evening. The orange sun melted into the lagoon, painting everything gold. She stood near the entrance, greeting guests, when Malik approached. "Hi," he said quietly, stopping a few feet away. She turned to face him, arms crossed gently, not defensively. "Hi. I didn't want to interrupt your speech," he said. "It was powerful." "Thank you," she replied. "You always liked when people listened to me talk, as long as I wasn't talking about you." He smiled faintly. "You're right. And I deserved that." There was a long silence. The air between them wasn't hostile anymore, just heavy with memory. "I saw your book," Nia said finally. "The one you released last month. Broken but breathing. It's doing well." He chuckled softly. "Yeah. People love stories about redemption. Probably because we're all looking for one." Nia nodded, her eyes softening. "And your heart? The doctor said you were cleared for travel, but are you really okay?" He placed a hand over his chest. "Physically I'm getting there. Emotionally, I think I'm still learning how to live without proving myself to the world." "That's a good start," she said quietly. He hesitated before speaking again. "Nia, I didn't come here to beg for a second chance at marriage. I came to thank you. You could have destroyed me, posted everything online, exposed all the ugly parts. But you didn't. You walked away with grace, and because of that, I learned what real strength looks like." Nia's eyes shimmered in the sunset. "I didn't need revenge, Malik. I just needed peace." He nodded slowly. "And you found it." "Yes," she whispered. "And maybe, so did you." He smiled. "I think I did." That night, Malik attended the dinner gala held in honor of the Wellness Center's opening. The hall was lit with fairy lights, and the walls were draped with Ankara fabric in hues of gold and green. Tables sparkled with chinaware, laughter filled the air, and the scent of jollof rice and pepper soup floated through the crowd. At one corner of the room, Amara, now walking with tiny confident steps, was toddling around, giggling as she tried to grab a balloon. Malik knelt down and opened his arms. "Hey, sunshine." She stared for a moment, then took 2 unsteady steps toward him and fell into his embrace. Nia watched from across the room, her chest tightening as she saw Malik lift Amara gently, his face glowing with pure joy. For the first time, she didn't see the man who humiliated her. She saw the man he could still become, humbled, patient, softer. Madame Ebel appeared beside her, sipping palm wine. "He's learning," she said. "A man who bends doesn't break." Nia smiled faintly. "Maybe God isn't done with either of us." Later, when most of the guests had gone and the moon hung high above the lagoon, Nia stepped out to the balcony. Malik joined her a moment later, holding 2 cups of zobo. "Peace offering?" he asked, handing one to her. She took it, smiling. "Peace accepted." They stood in silence, watching the city lights blink like restless stars. Malik cleared his throat. "I've been thinking about something," he said. "Ebel wants to expand the program to the US. Maybe we could collaborate again, this time as equals. You handle nutrition and wellness, I handle community fitness." Nia turned to him, measuring his tone. "You'd really want to work together again after everything?" He nodded. "Only if you do. No cameras, no branding. Just purpose. We help people heal, like we're still learning to." Her lips curved into a small smile. "That actually sounds beautiful." He exhaled, relief washing over his face. "Then maybe we start again. Not as husband and wife, not yet. Maybe as 2 people building something honest." Nia looked out over the lagoon. "I like that. Starting from truth." They clinked their cups softly, the zobo catching the moonlight like wine. As they talked quietly, a cool wind brushed through the balcony, carrying laughter from the street below. Nia glanced at Malik, noticing the calm in his face, the man who once thrived on chaos now still as water. "Malik," she said softly. "Yes." "Do you believe people can change completely?" He took a deep breath. "No," he said honestly. "But I believe they can heal enough to do better." She smiled. "That's good enough for me." For the first time since their fall, they stood together, not as lovers bound by pain, but as 2 survivors of their own mistakes, finding strength in gentleness. A week later, their first joint workshop launched under a new name. Heartwork, Healing Through Health. People came from all over, men and women of every size and age. Some came for weight loss, others for peace of mind. And standing side by side, Nia and Malik welcomed them all. Malik began the session with a single line that hushed the crowd. "This program isn't about looking perfect, it's about living whole." The applause that followed wasn't for him alone. It was for the lesson they had both learned the hardest way possible. That night, after everyone had left, Malik turned to Nia as they locked up the hall. "You know," he said quietly, "I used to think karma ruined me." Nia raised a brow. "And now?" He smiled. "Now I think she rebuilt me, piece by piece." She chuckled softly. "Karma's a woman, huh?" "Oh, definitely," he said, grinning. "And she's got your patience." They laughed together, the sound soft, unforced, and honest. For the first time in years, it didn't feel like a beginning or an ending. It just felt right. Tell me what you think in the comments below. And if this story has touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more powerful African folktales, and share this story with someone who believes in second chances. Because sometimes, even karma can teach us how to love again. The rain came without warning. Lagos skies darkened, thunder grumbled, and the streets turned to mirrors. Inside the Ebel Wellness Center, the usual laughter of participants was replaced by the quiet patter of raindrops against glass. Nia stood by the window, arms folded, watching the storm roll in. A memory flickered, Atlanta that night, the rain mixing with fire and smoke. For the first time in months, she felt that same ache of fear. But this time, the fear wasn't for herself. Malik had been late to the center that morning. He'd sent a text. "Running late. Slight chest pain. Don't worry, I'll be there soon." He always said don't worry like a charm that could stop the world from trembling. But Nia knew better now. She turned when she heard the door open behind her. Aisha, now working as her assistant, stepped in holding her phone. "Sis, it's Malik." Nia's pulse spiked. "What about him?" "He's at St. Gregory's clinic. Collapsed on the way here." The world stopped. "What?" Nia's voice cracked. "Is he?" They said he's alive. They're checking his heart. Without thinking, Nia grabbed her bag and keys. Stay with Amara. Tell Madame Ebel I'll be back. The rain swallowed her footsteps as she ran outside. At the clinic, Malik lay on a bed hooked up to a small monitor, his breathing shallow but steady. His once muscular frame now looked fragile beneath the hospital sheets. The doctor, a tall man with soft eyes, turned as Nia entered. Mrs. Cole? She hesitated. Ex-wife. But yes. The doctor nodded politely. He's stable now. Exhaustion and mild cardiac stress. Nothing irreversible, but it's a warning. He hasn't been taking his rest seriously. Nia exhaled shakily. That sounds like him. Malik stirred, his eyelids fluttering. Nia? She was by his side in seconds. I'm here. He tried to smile weakly. You came fast. I told you not to overwork yourself, she said softly. You promised. He chuckled faintly. Old habits die hard. Nia's eyes welled. You almost did too. He turned his head toward her, eyes heavy but warm. You know what's crazy? When I fell, I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid of leaving things unsaid. She frowned slightly. Like what? He took a long breath. Like how you changed me. How your forgiveness became my medicine. How even now, when my heart fails, it's you I think of first. Nia's throat tightened. Malik, don't. Let me finish, he said gently. I've lived for applause, for validation, for the mirror. But the best part of my life was the part one spent quietly with you. And I wasted it. Tears spilled down her cheeks. You're not wasting it now. He smiled faintly. That's because you're still here. The heart monitor beeped softly, steady and rhythmic, a fragile promise in the room's hush. 2 days later, Malik was discharged. The rain had cleared, leaving the city washed and bright. Nia offered to drive him home. They rode in silence at first. The hum of the engine filled the space between them. At a red light, Nia glanced at him. You scared me, you know. I scared myself, he admitted. Every time I think I'm better, I push too hard. Maybe it's pride still hiding somewhere. Maybe it's fear, she said. You spent so long proving yourself to everyone. You don't know how to just exist. He nodded. You're right. She smiled softly. I usually am. They both laughed. For the first time in a long time, the laughter didn't feel forced. That evening, Malik sat on the porch of his apartment, a blanket around his shoulders. Nia had insisted on staying until his sister arrived. The air was cool, quiet. Remember the lemon tree? He asked suddenly. Nia smiled. Of course. It survived everything, even your bad cooking. He laughed weakly. It's still there, you know. Bearing fruit like nothing happened. Maybe it's trying to tell you something, she teased. Maybe, he said. Maybe some things can grow back if you stop tearing them down. They sat in silence again, listening to the crickets. Nia, Malik said quietly, do you ever think we could? She held up a hand gently. Don't rush it. Healing isn't a sprint. He nodded, understanding. Then I'll walk as long as it takes. 3 weeks passed. Malik recovered slowly, keeping to his therapy and resting more. Nia continued running the center, though she visited often to check on him. The line between friendship and something deeper began to blur again. One evening she arrived with Amara. The little girl squealed, running into Malik's arms. Daddy. Malik's face lit up as he lifted her, kissing her cheek. Hey, my sunshine. Nia stood by the doorway, watching them with quiet wonder. She's starting to talk now, she said. Yeah. She said, Daddy, before she said Mommy. He laughed. Smart girl. Nia chuckled but didn't hide the warmth in her voice. Don't get used to it. They sat together, watching Amara play with her doll. The soft hum of the ceiling fan and the faint smell of roasted corn outside made the moment feel timeless. Nia, Malik said suddenly, what if we tried again? She turned to him, eyes wide. Not just the work, he clarified quickly. As a family. But different this time. Slower. Kinder. Real. She didn't answer at first. Her gaze dropped to Amara, who was now asleep on the mat beside them. Finally, Nia spoke. You broke something, Malik. And I don't know if it can ever be what it was. I know, he said softly. But maybe we can build something new in its place. Nia sighed, tears threatening. I want to believe that. Then believe it, he whispered. I'll spend the rest of my life proving it. The night air grew heavier but peaceful. Nia looked up at the sky, then back at him. Let's take it one day at a time, she said finally. No promises. No expectations. Just one day at a time. Malik nodded, relief washing over him like dawn breaking through cloud. One day at a time, he echoed. He reached out his hand. She took it. Not as a wife reclaiming love, but as a woman allowing possibility. The porch light flickered softly, and for the first time since that fateful night, they didn't look like two broken people trying to fix what was lost. They looked like two healed souls learning how to begin again. Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story if it touched your heart. Sometimes, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, it means remembering without bitterness. The morning sun slipped gently through the curtains, gilding the small living room in honey-colored light. Nia stood by the window holding a cup of ginger tea while Amara toddled around, clutching a small teddy bear. The air was peaceful, soft, domestic, calm, the kind of peace that felt almost sacred. It had been a full year since that stormy night when Malik collapsed, and almost 2 years since the humiliation that had once defined them. Now their story had turned into something else entirely, a quiet rhythm of growth, forgiveness, and fragile hope. Outside, the world kept turning, but in this little corner of Lagos, healing had its own pace. Malik stepped into the room wearing a plain linen shirt and loose trousers, healthier and stronger than he'd looked in years. His hair had begun to gray slightly at the edges, but there was peace in his eyes, the kind of peace that doesn't come from success but from surrender. He smiled at Nia. "Morning." She turned, smiling softly. "Morning. You're up early again." "Can't sleep much these days," he said. "My head keeps spinning with ideas." "Good ones, I hope?" He nodded, sitting beside her. "I was thinking, maybe it's time to hand AfroPulse over completely. To the community. No profits. Just mentorship programs. It's been about me for too long." Nia tilted her head, studying him. "You really mean that?" He nodded slowly. "The brand was built on arrogance. Maybe it's time to rebuild it on compassion." She smiled faintly. "That's a legacy Amara would be proud of." Malik chuckled. "Speaking of Amara, did you see her yesterday? She tried to feed her doll jollof rice with a spoon." Nia laughed, warmth spreading through her. "She gets that stubbornness from you." "Maybe," he said, glancing at her, "but she gets her kindness from you." Their eyes met. A long silence bloomed between them, not awkward but full of unspoken gratitude. That afternoon, they drove together to the Ebel Wellness Center, where the final stage of their Heartwork program was taking place. The center buzzed with life. Laughter, chatter, the scent of herbs and pepper soup drifting from the cafeteria. Dozens of participants gathered in the courtyard, wearing colorful African attire. Some were dancing, others holding placards with handwritten affirmations. "I am more than a number. Healing is not linear. Kindness is strength." Madame Ebel herself was seated on a chair near the front, watching with quiet pride. When she saw them approach, she smiled and stood. "My children," she said warmly. "You've turned pain into something beautiful." "Thank you, Ma," Nia said, bowing slightly. Ebel turned to Malik. "And you, my son. You were a stone in your past life. But look at you now, soft enough to hold water, strong enough to guide it." Malik grinned, humbled. "I'm still learning, Ma." Ebel nodded. "Good. Learning keeps us alive." As evening approached, the event reached its peak. The courtyard lights flickered on, golden against the deepening blue of dusk. A band began to play soft talking drum rhythms as Nia stepped up to the microphone. "2 years ago," she began, "I stood in a different hall, one filled with laughter that wasn't kind. I was humiliated by someone I loved, and for a long time, I thought that moment defined me." The crowd listened quietly, every face turned toward her. "But pain," she continued, "is a strange teacher. It humbles us, but it also refines us. The man who hurt me didn't just learn to change, he learned to feel. And in doing so he taught me that forgiveness isn't weakness. It's wisdom." The audience murmured softly in agreement. Malik stood in the crowd, eyes glistening as he listened. "So tonight," Nia said, raising her voice just slightly, "I want every woman and man here to remember this. You are not the sum of your mistakes or your scars. You are the lesson that comes after." Applause thundered across the courtyard. Nia stepped back, handing the microphone to Malik. He took a deep breath before speaking. "I don't deserve the woman standing beside me," he said, his voice low but clear. "But life gave me a second chance anyway. And I've learned that karma doesn't punish to destroy, it punishes to rebuild." He paused, looking at the audience. "If you're watching this and you've ever made someone feel small just to feel big, stop. Look in the mirror and ask yourself if the power you're chasing is worth the people you're losing." The silence that followed was profound. Then, as if on cue, Amara's tiny voice rang out from the side, "Daddy." Everyone laughed softly. Malik's expression melted into pure joy as he turned to her. "That's my cue to stop talking," he said with a smile, and the crowd erupted into gentle laughter and applause. Later that night, after the event ended, Nia and Malik stood by the lagoon, watching the city lights ripple across the water. The air smelled of fried plantain, salt, and distant rain. The drums had faded, replaced by the quiet hum of night. "Do you ever think about that night?" Malik asked softly. "The scale, the laughter, the fire." Nia took a deep breath. "Sometimes. But not with pain anymore." He nodded. "I still hear it in my dreams sometimes. The sirens. The crowd." "Maybe that's good," she said. "Maybe it reminds you where grace found you." He turned to her, eyes gentle. "And where love stayed." She smiled faintly. "You've become quite the poet." He chuckled. "Karma writes the verses. I just learned to read them." They stood in silence again, the water whispering below. Finally Nia spoke, her tone soft but steady. "Malik, I forgave you long ago. But tonight I think I can finally say this: I love you. Not the man you were, but the man you've become." Tears filled Malik's eyes. He reached out and took her hand. "And I love you, Nia. Not the woman I thought you should be, but the woman you are." They stood there as the wind rustled the palm trees, their hands clasped, their hearts steady. No audience, no cameras, just truth. In the distance, thunder rolled softly again, but this time, it didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like applause. Months later, heartwork spread beyond Nigeria. Branches opened in Kenya, Ghana, and even Atlanta. Malik and Nia ran it together, balancing each other like sunrise and dusk. The lemon tree at their old house in Atlanta still grew, heavy with fruit. And sometimes when Malik visited, he would stand beneath it, smile and whisper, "Thank you, Karma, for teaching me the hardest lesson, and giving me the love to remember it by." The wind would rustle through the leaves as though answering, "Lesson received." And that, dear listener, is the end of this story. What lesson did you take from Malik and Nia's journey? Do you believe karma always gives second chances, or does it only teach once? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that forgiveness and growth are still possible. Because sometimes, the cruelest heartbreak leads to the kindest healing. And in the end, that's the true power of karma.